Today I'm going to be taking a flight that I've had my eye on for a while, and this is the Azores Airlines flight that operates seasonally from Oakland, California, out to Terceira Island in the Azores Islands, which is an archipelago off the coast of Portugal. Now, Azores Airlines used to be known as SATA International, and they've operated this route seasonally for a while. They used to use their A310s, and then they used an A330, and ever since 2018 they've had to contract out this route. Currently it's served by Euro-Atlantic Airways, which uses a 767 for this route, but it was an exciting route because every year the aircraft that serves this route seems to change. They've brought a 777 out here, and it looks like they just purchased some 787s, so we might see them too. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with Oakland International Airport, it's one of the three major airports in the San Francisco Bay Area, in addition to San Francisco itself, as well as San Jose. Now, it's reachable by BART. BART is the subway transit system that serves the Bay Area, stands for Bay Area Rapid Transit, and they do have a stop at the Oakland Airport, so you can actually take BART all the way to the airport. They also have a stop at San Francisco Airport, so it takes about an hour, hour and a half to get between those, so you are able to get between them. San Jose is the only one that's not connected, but it does make it easy to reach the airport if you live near one of the BART stations in the extended Bay Area. Now, I did take BART to the airport today. You can see here I took the Air BART, as they call it, which is just a rail connector between the Oakland Airport stop on the BART system, which is actually shared by the Oakland Coliseum, which is where the athletics baseball team plays. And then you hop on this transit connector. It takes you over to the airport parking lot. Now, Oakland Airport does have two terminals at it. Terminal 2 being used exclusively by Southwest, as Oakland is one of Southwest's focus cities, so they have plenty of destinations and a lot of flights out of there. And Terminal 1 being used for everything else. So obviously that's where Azores Airlines is going to be located out of, so we will head over there together. Now, Oakland does have some other international flights. However, they only go, as of now, to Mexico. So you can fly there on Southwest, Alaska, VAREREST, stuff like that, but it's only to Mexico at the moment. In the past, they did have other transatlantic service operated by Iberia or Level and Norwegian, as well as British Airways actually served there for a short bit of time before relocating to San Jose instead. But as of now, this flight on Azores Airlines is the only transatlantic or any transoceanic flight operating out of the Oakland Airport, and it seemed super strange to me, so I had to make it a point to talk to someone who worked there to figure out the reasoning behind this flight. Now, when I use the phrase seasonal, I do not take it lightly in this case. This is a flight that operates once a week. It comes in from the Azores on Tuesdays and departs back out to the Azores on Wednesdays. It happens once a week, and it only operates for about 2 to 3 months. So we're talking about 8 to 12 flights per year operated by this flight, by this airline. And it starts usually sometime in early June, and it ends sometime early August. So I was fortunate enough to get on this while it was going on, and it's one that I've been wanting to do for a while, but I could never actually find a flight operating, so I jumped on the opportunity when I saw it this summer, and I actually flew it in both directions. So this time we're just going to cover the leg to Oakland, but stay posted in a couple weeks and I'll have that video for the return leg as well, so we'll be able to check out both classes on this airplane and this strange route. Now through security, the first thing we see is gate 1 off to the right, separated from the rest of the gates, and this is actually for the international arrivals, and it fits much larger airplanes. Now, when we come back from the Azores to Oakland on that flight, we will arrive to this gate, and you'll see how that's set up. But it is tucked back here in the corner, far apart from everything else, and it does fit larger aircraft, and it's also so that they can connect the U.S. Customs and Border Protection to this gate without being in the way of any of the other operations. Right now it's set up for the VAREREST flight for Leon, which is going to be leaving shortly after my flight. Now, Terminal 2 is in much better shape than Terminal 1 at Oakland. Oakland's Terminal 1 definitely needs some work. It hasn't been touched in quite a while. They've done some little things here and there, but that's about it. So if you're looking for food, we recommend heading over to Terminal 2, which there is a connector post-security that you can walk between. And so that's a great option if you have some time to kill before your flight. Terminal 1 just doesn't have a lot more to offer. Now, I did have to look up Euro-Atlantic Airways and learn more about them in this airplane that I wasn't honestly expecting to see when I showed up at the airport today. And if you know more about them, feel free to share in the comments what you know about Euro-Atlantic Airways. But what I was able to gather from them is that they're usually just used for charters, and so airlines will use them to serve routes, kind of sometimes in like a sports charter kind of way around Europe, and sometimes like a high fly kind of method where an airline will use it temporarily to supplement a route, kind of like we're doing today with Azores Airlines between Oakland and Terceira. So if you know more about it, I'd love to know in the comments, but this was definitely not the airplane that I was expecting to see when I showed up at the airport today. One thing the airlines did do that I actually was that on their website, you can actually look up each aircraft that's part of their fleet, and it has a document that'll show you all the specifications of that aircraft, what it looks like, the seat map, and the features that you can have on board. So this is for my airplane. You can see it separates it into the business and economy class. So we're in business class today, and on our way back from Terceira in the future video, we'll be checking out the economy class. But you can see here what it lists as amenities. But also, the only thing I noticed is that the Wi-Fi didn't actually work on my phone. Now you also see the balloons and everything set up here in yellow and black. This is actually the same day, by coincidence, that Spirit Airlines launched its nonstop service between Oakland and New York City, a flight that I'm actually going to be on soon. So if you want to do that dreaded Spirit Airlines flight for 6 hours or so, this is your shot. Now Oakland does not have any airline dedicated lounges. The only lounge they do have is a Centurion Lounge. However, as a business class traveler on Azores Airlines, we were actually granted free access to this. The boarding pass had a note on it that said lounge, and so all I had to do was show that to the agent at the front desk, and they were able to let me in. Unfortunately, the lounge was very minimalistic. There was not a lot of options for food, and the options that were there weren't great, and there was not a ton of seating. I actually chose to not eat any of it, and instead just take a Coca-Cola and sit down and kill some time and charge everything before I got on the airplane. The good thing is that it was directly across from the gate that I had to head to, and so after sitting for about a half hour and charging up, I was hearing them board our flight, so I was able to leave the lounge, go right across the alleyway, and get on my flight. Now, boarding this flight, I have to admit, I was pretty excited to see what I was going to find, because in all honesty, I couldn't tell you. I had no idea what to expect, and it's an experience that I've never really had when getting on board any sort of flight. Now, I do have to admit, I was pretty surprised to see the lie flat seats in the business class cabin here, especially considering that when I purchased the business class ticket on their website, the picture was not a lie flat seat. The picture looked much more like a domestic first class in the United States. Now the flight was almost 100% full, but while people were still getting on board, I took the opportunity to check out the middle seats. Now the business class cabin was in a 1-2-1 setup, and so the only thing that I could see different was the storage here in the center console, which I did not have on my seat. However, I did have more storage in the center console, which they did not, so I guess it makes up for it there. Now one thing you'll notice as the gate pulls away here is that we're not actually parked at gate 7. The parking spot on the ground is 7A. 7 actually isn't big enough for the 767, and so there's a little side area that is made specifically for aircraft of this size that they built when Iberia and Norwegian started flying more frequently to Oakland, so they had room for the bigger aircraft. But the gate does have to be abnormally long, and it actually has to go across the normal parking spot number 7. And as we push back here, you can see gate number 1, which I mentioned earlier, way out there separated from the rest of the gates. You can see it. Now, as we taxi out from our gate, I figured I'd take a second here to explain to you exactly why this route exists, because in all honesty, until I got on this airplane and started talking to people, it really was a mystery to me. I had no clue why they chose Oakland, a smaller airport in California, to serve this small airport in Europe with such a large airplane, and why they only did it such a few times each year. Now, I did talk to the flight attendant, and she was able to give me a good enough explanation, and I'm actually welcome to see what the rest of you guys have to say about it, and if you have anything to add, I look forward to seeing that in the comments. What I saw from the flight attendant, however, is that there was actually a huge Azorean migration to the northeastern United States, mostly Massachusetts and Rhode Island and that sort of area, and so they do fly to New York and Boston as well. However, it seems like in the 80s and 90s, a large portion of those moved to the Central Valley of California and up and down Highway 99. Central Valley being the areas between the Sierra Nevadas and the Bay Area or the coastal ranges of California. Now, the reason that it sounds like they went to Oakland is because they were able to draw the crowd from the Bay Area and the large Azorean population from there. However, it was also able to pull a few stragglers from the Bay Area that wanted to also go to Portugal and the Azores. This flight, actually, the exact flight number and airplane, has a 2-hour rest in Terceira before continuing on to Lisbon, where it terminates, and then the plane goes and does its thing. So it does have a crowd of the Bay Area that wants to go to Portugal, but the flight exists solely for the reason of the Azorean people in Central Valley needing to get back to the Azores and a good way for them to get back home nonstop. So it is a great option. Now my next question is just, why does it operate so few times a year? And that is something that I did not get an answer to. So if you have any idea, go ahead and let me know. And as always, the best part of departing out of Oakland instead of San Francisco itself is the views of San Francisco that you get, that you don't always get out of San Francisco. Now they did close the curtains in front and behind the business class cabin, which made it feel pretty private in there, but it also made it a little bit harder for us to get to the galley. It looked like one of the pilots was using the restroom, and so they were being extra protected with the front galley, which is where the sole restroom was for the business class passengers. Now before our meal, we were given this packet, which I assumed to be a sanitizing wipe for our hands before we ate our first meal. However, I opened it up and it actually ended up being more of a cloth, like a warm towel. It was slightly heated up, and it was sanitizing, however. So a nice touch before we got food. And now the problems I had with the IFE, the in-flight entertainment. Biggest thing being the screens were so darn reflective that you couldn't really see anything on the screen unless all the lights in the cabin were off and it was dark. Otherwise, it was super reflective. In addition to that, it makes sense considering it only operates in Europe, but there was not a ton of options, especially in English, as far as movies and stuff go. So I actually brought my own iPad, prepared with some movies downloaded to watch on this flight. Now the seat actually has some great functions here. It's super roomy and it's got multiple places where you can control the seat. It's got a nice massage function as well as 3 preset modes in addition to being able to individually control each part of the seat. Now I'll show you what each of those look like later, but for now at least I just wanted to give you a look at what I had around my seat. Now as far as charging ports go on this plane, you'll see here at my seat we've got the universal charging port as well as the USB charging port. However, it's flashing red and green. Mine actually did not work. Now from what I can tell, the rest of the seats did work, and one thing that I will mention is that you only get the universal charging port in the business class cabin on this airplane. The economy seats seem to only have the USB charging port. Our first service came about an hour into the flight. We were just given some drinks, and I opted for what they called red juice, which I'd never heard of before. It seems to be a combination of a few different types of juices, including raspberry, and as well as just a red fruit that they were saying is native to Portugal and Azores. Shortly after, we were given our dinner, which was actually the only meal we were served on this 10-hour flight, which was a little surprising. It had a salad, it had some good stuff with it. The bread was good, some crackers, cheese. I went with the chicken option. It was either chicken or fish, and it came with this nice berry cake for dessert. All in all, it was a pretty good meal. I was expecting lower standards on this airplane, considering I had never heard of it, but they did pretty well. And I had a super box drink. For those of you that aren't familiar, it's just a Portuguese beer, and it was also pretty well. After dinner and they cleaned everything up here, I went with just a normal Coca-Cola. They gave me a Coke Zero because it was the only thing they had that was cold, which I took just happily. And you see I got my iPad set up there to watch my movies on, as opposed to the normal IFE screen. Well, the sun's starting to go down. They're starting to prepare the cabin for sleep. I wanted to take a quick second to just show you guys some of the seat options here. So they've got normal, relax, and the lie flat option. So first things first, you've got the normal option here, just your normal seat, what you've seen the whole flight so far. The relax option comes after that. Now, I found this one to be a little too reclined to be completely comfortable, but luckily you can individually adjust each part of the seat, so that was helpful. And then the last part is the lie flat portion. Now, it did turn into a full bed, and it was nice, and it actually had quite a bit of room. It's just the seat's awfully hard. So you'll see I set up the bed later. They didn't give us a whole lot to work with, but it was good enough. Now, before making my bed, I went to go to the restroom and brush my teeth and everything and get ready. This is just a look at the front galley. You can see the restroom up by the cockpit door. That was the sole restroom for the business class passengers. There was just one restroom for the 24 people seated up there. Now that the sun's gone down, it's time to make my bed. You can see the blanket they give you isn't too substantial, neither is the pillow. It did good enough for what I needed, but all in all, I would have liked a little bit more to it. Now, while the bed was hard and the blanket and pillow were skimpy, it must have been good enough because I woke up about 6 hours later for our initial descent call from the cockpit as we prepare for our arrival here into the Azores. Right about here we got our first look at the actual Terceira Island, part of the Azores, which they refer to as the Hawaii of Europe.
to Azores. We have just landed at Terceira International Airport. The local time is 8:05 a.m. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened until the sign has been turned off and your ground stop logo, please.
Now, Terceira's airport here in Lajes used to be an air base for the military, so it's got plenty of ramp space and whatnot. Now, they do have a terminal that we will see. However, we don't park at the terminal in this airplane. You'll see that we actually taxi to the other side of the airport. There's a hard stand where they bus us over. I was told the reason for this was that the terminal ramp area can't accommodate the aircraft size of the 767. So I'm not sure what they use for the A310 or the A330 that they used to use from Oakland. But if you know, go ahead and let me know down in the comments.
How are you? Good. Recognize me? Huh? Get it out of the way. There's a emergency. To turn it around, so they can just head out here and take off. Because they're only going to.
Now, one thing I did find kind of fun about the airport here is that the Azores Airlines apparently are known for their cows. And as we drove around here, there was plenty of cows sitting up along the fence looking almost like they were looking out at the airplanes. Now we're pulling up to the terminal, and you'll see the ramp shortly. You'll see they've got about 6 parking spots for other airplanes, including an A321 of Azores Airlines that was heading out back to New York JFK's airport. Now, the bus is dropping us off at one of the doors here, and we'll head inside. And you'll notice that off to the right, there's a sign and someone pointing you upstairs if you were continuing on to Lisbon. So I did get to try that out on the way back to Oakland, so keep an eye out for that video coming up soon, and you can see how that worked. For everyone else, you just continue straight and it takes you directly through immigration. Well, now I've got my bag collected, I'm back into the parking lot here, and I'm actually catching a flight to Lisbon, but I wanted to enjoy some time here in Terceira Island. But anyway, keep your eyes posted for the follow-up video returning back in the economy class. You can check that out and see what that has to offer as we return back to Oakland, starting in Lisbon, so you can see the connection here in Terceira Island. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you, and keep your eyes peeled for the next video. Peace.